Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned. Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry. Corey Sirota is usually here. She's off this week. Coming right up on the first half of today's show, imagine skating outdoors nonstop for 19 hours and 26 minutes, and all for a good cause. Well, we're going to hear all about this amazing feat that happens annually. And on the second half, after the 4:30 news, we're going to be talking healthy hearts with Agnes Cartier. Agnes is the driving force behind the West Island Cardiac Wellness Program, and we'll be discussing heart disease prevention, cardiac rehab, and how we can all have healthier hearts. So thank you very much for joining us here on Life Unrehearsed on a pretty nasty 24 hours. Hopefully you're getting through this nasty weather. Remember, please, to check in with any vulnerable loved ones or neighbors that you know. Give them a call, make sure they're fine. And you know what? I came in from the West Island this afternoon, and the roads weren't too bad. Actually, it was clear sailing, quite frankly. Got in faster than normal, so it's not too bad. They've done a great job cleaning up, and from what I hear, not too many power failures, and should all be done by the end of the day. Well, we can't mess with Mother Nature. Steve McNeil and the Broady brothers, Scott, Sean, and Mark, had been preparing for this year's version of the 1926 skate held here in Montreal at Parc Maisonneuve. They're scheduled to skate for these 19 hours and 26 minutes beginning this past Friday evening. Well, life is indeed unrehearsed, and the skate had to be postponed until the 31st because of the poor outdoor rink conditions. However, these guys are troopers, and we're going to bring the boys in. And first, I'd like to bring in Steve McNeil, who is calling from his home in Toronto and the founder of the 1926 skate. Steve, thanks for joining us.
How are you today, Matt?
Doing well. Really appreciate you coming on the show for such a great cause. And we also have in studio, we have Scott and Sean Broady. They made the trek in from the West Island. Boys, thank you for coming in and being in studio with us.
Thanks for having us, Matt. Much appreciated.
Great to be here, Matt.
All right, and there's one brother not here, Mark, but he's probably listening in, and he is the third brother that will be doing the skate this year. And Steve, we're going to start with you. Please tell us, about the skate, and how did you even get started about 1926 skate? What does it even mean?
Okay, 8.5 years ago, I've refereed recreational beer league hockey here in Toronto for over 30 years. 8.5 years ago, in the middle of refereeing a hockey game, I came up with an idea of how I could try to give back. And at the time, my mother had spent 10 or 11 years in a nursing home, and she'd been battling Alzheimer's for about 20 years. This is back in 2012. So I decided I went out Christmas Day in 2012 and skated for 19 hours and 26 minutes just as a dedication to my mother, who was born in 1926. I thought it would be a nice tribute to her, and she passed the following February 2013. And friends and family convinced me to turn it into a fundraiser when I wanted to do it again on her birthday, December 15th. So now every year here in Toronto on December 15th, for the last 8 years, I skate for 19 hours and 26 minutes. So last year I went to all 7 Canadian NHL cities to try and raise awareness for Alzheimer's. And that's where I was graced with the presence of the Broady brothers. And these guys are dynamic individuals, let me tell you. And I can hardly wait to get on the ice with them. And I met the brothers last year when I came to Montreal for the first time. And I had so much fun at Parc Maisonneuve. So I was really looking forward to this weekend to come back. And it looks like we have to put it off until the 31st. So, we'll get it done on the 31st.
Steve McNeil, he's the originator and founder of 1926 Skate in honor of his mom, who was born in 1926, and all proceeds going to the various Alzheimer's societies, obviously the one in Montreal, going to the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal. You mentioned you've been doing this, I guess, for 8 years. How many skates have you done throughout that time, Steve?
To this point, including the 2 that I've already done this year in Toronto and Ottawa, I've done 15 skates to date, complete.
Incredible.
In 7 different cities. So now I'm, after last year, doing the 7 Canadian NHL cities. This year I'm doing all 10 provinces. But I'm not going to forget anybody that I've already done. So I'm actually doing 12 skates this year I fly tomorrow to Vancouver. I'll start there, and by February 21st, I'll have completed another 10 skates in 9 different provinces.
And of course, it's incredible. And just to refresh people's mind, this is all done outdoors, correct?
Yes.
Unbelievable. This year, the Montreal event was postponed to Friday, January 31st. It's going to be held at Parc Maisonneuve. We're going to bring in the Broady brothers. We've got Scott and Sean Broady, and you are Montreal-based, very well known in the real estate industry. And I guess I'm going to start with you, Scott. You gave it a shot just to help Steve out in last year's skate and skated around for a bit. Tell me how that experience was.
Well, last year it was about minus 35 when Steve rolled into town. So I braved the weather to go out there, laced up the skates, and maybe skated for about 45 minutes or an hour. And when I, experienced that, I was like, wow, that is incredible that he's been doing that throughout the night in those temperatures. And that wasn't even the coldest one. I think in Edmonton, Steve, like minus 40. It was
That's a balmy day in Edmonton. So could you imagine 45 minutes to an hour? You just got a snippet of what it's about, and now you said, "Hey, boys, you got your brothers involved, and Sean and Mark will be joining you, Scott, with Steve this year." I'm going to bring Sean in here. Sean, you sure you know what you're getting into here?
Well, Matt, to be honest, I'm a little scared. I don't think anybody realizes this, but I've been on skates a total of about 40 minutes in the last 20 years.
Oh.
So Scott was gracious enough to take me out and buy me help me buy a pair of secondhand skates at a local business here called Play It Again Sports. They set me up with a nice pair of CCMs. So I got out and skated with Scott for a little bit last weekend, and we'll try it out. But I certainly anticipate a difficult 19 hours and 26 minutes.
You're going to go for it along with your brother Mark. As I mentioned, he's not here, but he's here with you in spirit. He'll be joining you. And I had originally thought that the three brothers, you're just going to rotate, maybe in an hour, and then you just... I was wrong. I guess all three of you are going to try to go for it with Steve the entire way if you can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think, we're in pretty good shape, and the three of us have been, involved in several different activities, triathlons and Spartan races, and we love to work out. But don't get me wrong, I think the longest I've been on skates consecutively has probably been for 2 or 3 hours maybe. So this is a different level. But Steve has coached us a bit, was telling us, don't tie your skates up very tight at all. And I think it's just a question of mental too, and having the four of us together is going to make it a little bit easier, I think.
That's Scott Broady. You heard he's here in studio with Sean Broady, his brother Mark. Their brother Mark will also be joining. Steve McNeil, the founder of 1926 Skate. They skate 19 hours and 26 minutes straight. Steve's been doing it, as you heard, 7 NHL cities. This will be the second one in Montreal, all raising funds for the Alzheimer Society of Montreal. Steve, I think you know what you're getting into. I don't know if the boys quite know yet. However, incredible conditions, like you said, last year, minus 35 degrees. What do you do to prepare? How do you even dress?
You know what? I was explaining to the brothers. It's that perpetual motion thing. I explained to them they want to bring a couple of different changes of clothing for their upper body, because sometimes you start getting into a groove, and you get the heat build up, and if you slow down and it starts cooling off, I'll be in Edmonton at minus 40 degrees. I was naked from the waist up, changing my turtlenecks and my hoodie and stuff because they were damp from sweat. So those are the challenges they face. It's those kind of psychological things to where you have to be prepared to go out there and accept the unexpected. I don't ever know what to expect. Every skate that I do is different, weather-wise, ice conditions, my body, everything. The only thing that's consistent with me is probably the AC/DC, because that's what I listen to.
In fact, we're going to talk a little bit more about AC/DC. That's dear to your heart. You're a 58-year-old teenager, Steve. That's what I love about you, and you've still AC/DC pants and all in the right garb while you're skating away. And, I guess you're right. If you start sweating in the minus 30, you need to be prepared. And I think it's fun and games in the first hour or two, but I'm sure, like you said, Scott, it's very psychological as you come down the stretch. Now, You have faced the worst weather conditions, Steve. However, you have story after story. We're going to be talking about one hilarious story. I believe it was in Calgary. But first, we got to get a traffic update. So let's head to the CJD Traffic Center, and we'll hear back from that story. Lauren Glazer, how are the roads?
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here. We're talking with the big AC/DC fan, Steve McNeil. And we're talking to Steve, along with Scott and Sean Broady, about this incredible 19-hour, 26-minute marathon outdoor skate to honor Steve's mom and to bring awareness about Alzheimer's disease. As mentioned, we have Scott and Sean in studio. They're going to be doing a skate next Friday, January 31st. Their brother will be tagging along, Mark. And Steve, you are a big AC/DC fan. We're going to get into that in a second. However, just before traffic, you've probably seen it all, and you've got some pretty funny stories. There's one in particular that stood out, the one you were telling me. I think it was in Calgary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. From the minute I got off the plane in Calgary, it was blizzard-like conditions. It was minus 30-something, and the snow never stopped. I went to the outdoor rink they gave me to skate at in Calgary was just a lawn bowling facility in the summertime. There was no walls. There was no building, nothing, just a bench at the end of the ice. As I went there earlier in the day to do a media hit, I was told that the cameraman would be coming back at midnight when I would be starting to shoot some B film. So I get out of the cab at 10 minutes to midnight in the blizzard, again, conditions. And there's the cameraman waiting for me, and I'm putting my skates on, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to be able to skate on this. There's 18 inches of snow on the ice. And the neighborhood, right across the street, there was a bar. So I literally walked into the bar at 5 minutes to midnight with my skates on and my skate guards and my AC/DC pants and my hoodie. And I walked up to the two guys behind the bar, and I asked them if I could rent their shovel off them. At which point, after they finished laughing at me, they asked me what I was doing, and I explained to them I'd be skating at the rink right in behind their bar for the next 19 hours and 26 minutes. And they gave me their shovel and let me go shovel the walkway off around the outside of the rink, and I went out and started turning laps, as I call it, and skating for 19 hours and 26 minutes. And it was complete blizzard-like conditions the entire skate in Calgary. And they were kind enough to give us all a round of drinks when I was finished the skate the following night.
Love it. I mean, can you imagine? And you started that particular skate at midnight, you said, right?
A lot of the times I do start at midnight, although I have I changed it up in some of the cities. Like in Montreal, it's such a beautiful city. I want the people to come out and enjoy themselves with myself and the Broady brothers as we start at 5 p.m. or midnight, whichever time it is. I think it's going to be more weather conditions related and stuff, but it'll be one of the two. And just that way it gives people more of an opportunity to come out and spend some of the day with us on skates. And again, you get a lot of people that show up and encourage us to do what we're going to be doing and stuff like that, because the boys are in for a real challenge. But I'll be honest with you, and I said this to them when they first approached me with the idea, is I've met a lot of people in the 8 years I've been doing this, and a lot of people have mentioned they'd like to come out and try to do the 19 hours and 26 minutes. The Broady brothers are the first people I actually think are going to be able to pull it off, truly, because as Scott said, these guys are maniacs over there in Montreal. They're training all the time. They're always working out, running marathons and walking through deserts and stuff like that. These guys are fit, and I'm really looking forward to spending the wee hours of the night where we can just slide along and keep each other going, kind of thing. Because, like Sean said, he hasn't skated very much in the last little while. So it's going to be us to make sure we hold them up, so to speak, emotionally and physically, maybe.
Well,
you know what I mean? But
like you say,
it's
Steve,
it's about the four of us finishing it.
It is, and you say emotional and physical. Steve McNeil, founder of 1926 skates 19 hours and 26 minutes in honor of his mother, who was born in 1926, passed away with Alzheimer's, and he's going around the country doing this skate, raising funds for Alzheimer's. Good on you, Steve. And good on the boys. Scott and Sean Broady are here in studio. Mark Broady is here with us in spirit. He's listening, I'm sure. The three of them are going to go for it. And Scott, I'm going to bring you back in here. And this is personal for you. You're not just going for a skate, are you?
No. And I want to mention that last year when we first met Steve, there was an instant connection there because we do share a very similar story. Steve mentioned his mother and our father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at an early age 58 back in the year 2000. And, we'd wanted to do something to help the Alzheimer's Society. And that's when Mark and I, along with a friend of ours, David Gold, we started the Night to Remember, which was a fundraising gala. And that was right around the same time that Steve was starting his skate in Toronto. So we were sort of on parallel paths there, doing the same thing without knowing about each other. And then when we met each other on the ice there was just that instant connection, as I said. And what we realized, in the last couple of years was that, focusing on one event a year and trying to raise as much money as you can was just not a sustainable model. And so we decided that, the hummingbird effect, and we termed that phrase, for many small wing beats can have a much, much bigger impact than any one person can. And that's where we started to hopefully get the word out and inspire people to be micro-philanthropists and to start doing their own things. And then, the chance meeting with Steve is like, this is exactly the type of thing we were talking about, is people just going out there and taking the initiative and doing something. And then we're able to use our 7-8 years of experience in putting on these events to provide them with the platform and the tools that they need. And so it was just a great partnership all around.
And Steve's a really hard guy to get along with, I hear, right?
Yeah.
I like to describe him as Canada's Hulk Hogan. He's got so much enthusiasm. Like, it's the AC/DC's coursing through his veins, and it's impossible not to be pumped up when you're around this guy. So I have no doubt about it.
He's a ball of energy.
And ball of energy. What you probably don't know, Steve. How many games did you ref today alone?
So far, I've done 4. I have another 2 tonight.
4 he did this morning. Came in for the home for the interview. Another 2 to 58 years old, refereeing. You're just a madman, Steve. Doing such a good thing, raising funds for Alzheimer's, bringing awareness to this terrible disease, and really appreciate you going across the country. Again, just to repeat, you'll be here in town on Friday, January 31st. Parc Maisonneuve, and we want to get a little bit of information where people could look this up, Steve, and which website can our listeners look at if they want to find out more information?
Well, I'm sure there's a Facebook group page that the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal and the Broady brothers have put together that everybody seems to be jumping on. There's also, my website is www.1926skate.com, and any of the social media, anything 1926skate. Whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, I'll be pretty active on there the entire time that we're skating, and I'm sure all 3 brothers are pretty up to speed with it too. So we'll all be dancing on the social media and stuff, but anything 1926 skate comes up, and I'm sure the Broady brothers also have some a website or something that they'd probably be able to put out there.
Absolutely. So, Steve, 1926 skate, the best way to find out a little bit more information about all you do, not just particularly for this skate, and as a reminder, January 31st at Parc Maisonneuve. Look it up, 1926 skate, but you are traveling across the country, and this is just gaining momentum. I want to wish you the best of luck, Steve. Thanks for taking a little time in your busy schedule to talk to us about this worthy cause. Really appreciate it. And we're going to get the boys in here, Scott and Sean. We want to thank you. You made the trek in on an ugly day today, and how could people, you guys are doing an excellent job in the real estate world in the West Island, how could people get a hold of you?
Oh, well, if any real estate needs, you can reach us at, our website's probably the easiest, at www.broadywindsor.com.
All right.
And we've got my brother Mark as well, who's also with Team Broady. So the Brodies are well covered.
They're out there, Mark,
there.
And of course, Mom and Libby. Please give regards to Mark and Mom for me.
Absolutely. And then also just a quick mention of, Night to Remember was the name of our fundraising event for Alzheimer's. And this year we're combined forces with Hope for Dementia, a bigger organization, a larger umbrella. And that event will be taking place March 28th. At the Crown Plaza. So for more information, hopefordementia.org.
All right, another nice fundraiser for Alzheimer's Society. Hey, Steve, you have a song real quick. What's your song? As you're in your last few laps, 19 hours and 26 minutes, so probably at around the 19-hour, 23-minute mark, what song do you usually play, you were telling me?
The only time I program a song is the very last one each skate, and that's Gone Shooting from the Power Age album, because it's as good as it gets when it comes to rock and roll as far as I'm concerned. Just hearing the brothers just tune out on their guitars puts me in a happy place, and I'm able to do what I do.
All right.
I'd like to just say thanks to everybody in Montreal. Matt, you rock, and you guys, you brother guys, you brothers Broady. I can hardly wait to hook up with you guys and do some sliding, guys.
Absolutely, looking forward to it, Steve.
Steve, thank you very much.
I'll
We
see you
appreciate
guys
it. You guys need healthy hearts. You know what? Our next segment is going to be talking about healthy hearts and how to prevent cardiovascular disease. And Steve, this one's for you as we head down our last laps of this interview segment. This is for you.